Welcome to your first tutorial on how to use Onshape. You've probably already watched the video on how to create an account. Now that you have created an account, I'm going to show you how to create a document. Okay, so first thing we're going to need to do, this is my Onshape landing page. This is where you come when you first sign in. I've got a few projects here. I've got a few more in my last schools folder there as well, but today we are going to make a new document. So we need to go up here to create, and we're going to open a new document. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to call this one Understanding the Basics. Okay, because that's what we're going to be doing today. All right. So when you get into your screen, you should see three different planes to draw upon. Okay, so this is your normal. When you open up a blank document, everything here, there's nothing on the document at the moment. It's just simply a blank document. Just going to move that just a little bit lower there so you can see the bottom tab there. So this document has nothing on it yet. You'll notice that there's these three top, right and front planes, and you'll also notice there are a whole heap of tools or pictures along the top here. These tools we're going to be using some of them today. I'm going to keep you guys I'm going to keep it fairly simple at the moment, really just orientating yourself with the screen and where everything is, but also using some of these components here. You'll notice on the right as well, there is a little cube here. If you click on parts of the cube, it will simply just move your view. All this does is control your view. You can actually grab this whole component and move it around if you wish, but I like to just leave it there in the corner. And you can essentially orientate your view. So sometimes you might not be able to see what you're working on, and you just want to change the view that you're working with. That's how you do it up here. Okay. So you can see as I'm turning it around, it sort of rotates around. Okay, now we don't have anything on our screen yet. So what we're going to do first is we're going to simply make a sketch. Now the way this program sort of works is every time you make a sketch, that's a 2D image. Then after you've made a 2D image, you can stretch it into the third dimension, sort of like drawing a square and then stretching that up into a cube. Okay, and that's actually what we're going to start with now. So we need to click on Sketch, and the first thing that the sketch needs to know, you'll see this little box pops up and it says Sketch Plane. First thing it wants to know is what plane do you want to sketch on? And that refers to these three planes on the screen. So is it the right plane, the front plane, or the top plane? Okay, and I'm going to make it simple, and I'm going to work on the top plane. So I'm going to click on the top plane, and you'll notice there's a sketch 1 box is drawn around the top plane. So it tells me now that that's the plane I'm drawing on. Okay. You should also see on your screen this little target looking thing right there. If I zoom in on that, I'm just using the scroll button to zoom in here on my mouse. If you're using a trackpad, you might need to use the 2-finger slide to do this. But anyway, that's this little target thing in the middle. That's the origin. That's where all three of these planes are meeting together. So sometimes we'll use this origin point occasionally, and we're actually going to use it right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up to here. You'll notice now that we've entered a sketch, some of these tools at the top here, they're all changed. This is essentially our set of 2D tools. The ones that you were looking at before, they were the 3D tools. They're the ones that you work with normally. But the 2D tools, we actually need to draw something in 2D first before we can stretch it into 3D. So we've got our 2D tools here. I'm actually going to grab this one here that is our corner rectangle tool. And if you just hover your mouse over that tool, it will actually tell you what it is. It'll even tell you the little quick key shortcut for it. You'll see here for the circle, it is a C. If you press C on your keyboard, you'll draw a circle. If you press G on your keyboard, you'll go to the rectangle. So we're going to use the rectangle tool. I'm just going to click on that one. There are different types of rectangles. If you use the drop-down menu, you'll see there's 2 different types of rectangles. One of them is drawing it from corner to corner, and the other one is drawing it from the middle to the corner. We might actually use both today, okay? So first of all, we're going to use the corner to corner rectangle, and I'm actually going to simply draw sorry, I didn't have it selected, a rectangle on this top plane. Okay, so it doesn't matter where it is, anywhere is fine. I'm going to do it over in the corner here. Okay, so I've simply clicked once, stretch it out, and I click again. Now you'll notice once you've clicked a second time, these two boxes now become available. You'll see that if I zoom in here, it's drawn my rectangle, but it's drawn it to be 40.204 millimeters wide. Now say I didn't want it 40.2 millimeters wide. If you notice that the box is actually got the number has got a white box around it, that means I'm able to change it. So if I simply type on my keypad now, let's make this box 50 millimeters wide. So I'll change it to 50 and I'll hit enter. Okay, and it's made it exactly 50 millimeters wide. And you'll notice it's gone over, now the box is selected around the other measurement, the other side of the rectangle here. It's made it 68 millimeters tall. I want to make it, instead of 50 millimeters, instead of 68, I'm going to make it 50 as well. So it's going to be a square. Okay, same height as the width. Okay, and once I'm happy with that sketch, I can click this little tick box here and in the sketch one. So sketch one is now complete. I'm happy with it. I'm finished. You'll notice now the last sketch that you draw will always be left on the screen. Now that I've clicked that tick box in the sketch one, I've gone back to my 3D tools here, but I can still see my 2D plane that I drew in the last sketch that I do. Sometimes they will disappear. If you do, say, 5 sketches before doing anything with the 3D tools, then the ones earlier will probably disappear. But the last one that you do, the last one that you just drew, will always be on the screen. Okay? So, now that I'm in the 3D tools, I want to actually stretch this square so that it's got not just 2 dimensions, but it's got 3 dimensions. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to this tool that's right next to the sketch tool, and it's called the extrude tool. And click on extrude, and the extrude tool is simply going to stretch that shape up here. But just like before when we entered a sketch, a little box comes up here. Every time we enter a tool, a little box will pop up and it wants to know some information. So the first thing it wants to know in this blue box here, it says faces and sketch region to extrude. It really wants to know, what do you want to extrude? Okay, so I'm going to tell it. I'm going to tell it by clicking on the area. This square is what I want to extrude. Okay, and you can see it's stretching that upwards. Now you'll notice also in this box, the default setting for the amount of extrusion is 25 millimeters. Okay, I want to make this a cube, so I'm going to make it not 25, but 50 millimeters. Okay, so I'm going to hit 50, I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to stretch it up so that it's 50 millimeters. Okay, so now I'm happy with that. You can see it's created that 3D shape. Once I am happy with that, then I can click the tick box again. And there we go. We have a solid 3D cube in our space now. Okay, so I can move and orientate my screen now, moving around and around until I move back to the same position. So that is a simple cube. Now, you'll also notice once you have made this cube, on the left-hand side of the screen here, there is a list of all the steps that you've gone through to make the cube. So I've got one sketch, that was the 2D shape, and I've got the extrusion there, the stretching that shape up into the 3rd dimension. Okay, so if you ever wanted to change that, say for example you were like, oh, I just realized actually I didn't want a 50 by 50 cube, I wanted a 40 by 40 cube. You could go back into your sketch by double clicking the sketch here, and it will take you back to this screen that we saw earlier, and you can go and double click on the 50 measurement and change it to be a 40 measurement. So now I've gone in and I've changed my cube to be 40 by 40 millimeters wide, and again I'm going to click the tick in the sketch 1 box. So I've finished the sketch, And there it is. Now, it's actually not a cube anymore. It's a rectangle because our extrusion is still 50 millimeters tall. So if I go ahead and double click the extrusion now, I can also edit and change the extrusion. So maybe I do want it still a cube, but 40 by 40 cube. So I'm going to change that to be 40 mil tall. Okay. And there we go. Now I've got a 40 by 40 cube, and I didn't add any more sketches. I've still only got one sketch and one extrusion, but I've gone in and I've changed it. Okay. So that's one cube. Let's go ahead and make now, we're going to make another simple shape. We're going to use a new sketch. So I'm going to click on sketch, and this is going to enter sketch 2. And I'm going to click again, I'm going to click on the top plane. This is the plane I want to draw on. So the sketch plane, you'll see in the blue box there, it wants to know the sketch plane. The sketch plane is what I'm going to do, and it's got sketch 2 is drawn around this top, the top plane here. So this time, instead of making a cube, let's make a cylinder, okay? So let's start with our circle tool, okay? Our center point circle tool. So click on this tool, and I'm going to draw this tool from the very center. You'll notice when I get close to the center, it actually lights up yellow. And you can see sometimes there's these little dotted lines coming off it. That means it's perpendicular from one of those planes. But what I can do is I can actually zoom in a little bit on this origin point. If I move my cursor on top of that origin point, you'll notice if I get right on it, it gets this little yellow box around the origin point. That box shows me that I'm clicking right on that point. If you're holding it near it, it may light up yellow, but it won't have the box around it. That means you're right next to the origin point. But if I get it right on it, it's got a little box around it. So I can click there. I've clicked once, and again, just like the rectangle, I've clicked once and then I'm stretching it out. And remember, I don't care how much I stretch it out, because remember, I always get that chance to redefine the size. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I want it to be exactly 60. I'm going to try and slide my mouse out until it's exactly, oh, I've gone too far, I've got to come back, and oh, no, that's too far. It takes a very long time to try and get right like that. Doesn't matter really. What you just do is you stretch it out as far as you want, you click anywhere, and then it'll give you that option again. It's got that measurement highlighted by that white box. You can go in and you can change it. So let's make this cylinder 50 millimeters in diameter. Okay, so you can see from one side to the other of the circle is 50 millimeters. And I simply did that by typing that in and hitting enter. Okay, so there we go. There's our second sketch. We've got a circle as our second sketch. So I'm going to hit the tick. Our sketch is complete. But again, I need to extrude this into the third dimension. So I'm going to go up here to extrude. And this time, instead of clicking on the square, I'm going to click on the circle. Now, it's going to be set to 25 mil tall, just like it defaults to every time. We're going to change that depth to be 100. Okay, so I've stretched out my cylinder now to be 100 millimeters long, and I'm going to hit the tick, and there we go. We've got a cylinder. We've got a rectangle and a cylinder now. Now, you'll notice as well, these two objects are two different colors. I have a blue rectangle, a blue cube, and a grey cylinder. Okay, now you'll also notice down the side here, I've got part 1 and part 2. These are my cube and my cylinder. You'll notice they're highlighting. Every time I slide up to the cube, it gets this yellow box around it. And every time I go to part 2, it gets a yellow box around the cylinder rather. So these are two separate individual parts, okay? So part 1 and part 2 are not linked. They're not connected. If they were connected, if they were touching, they would all be one color, and they will be listed here as just one part. But we've got actually two parts, and that's important when it comes to assembling our parts later, and we'll get to that in another video, okay? But at the moment, we've got two parts, a rectangle, or a cube rather, and a cylinder, okay? So there's some basics of understanding for Onshape today. I'm not going to take that any further. You guys can wait for my next video before we go and do something else. Hopefully that was helpful. If there's any problems there, you feel free to send me an email or put something on the Google Classroom. Okay, that's all for me. I'll look forward to seeing you in my next video. Goodbye.